Hey guys, it's Cece, and today I want to talk about some of my favorite book-to-movie adaptations. Before we get into my favorites, and I have a couple of them that I want to discuss, I just thought it would be an opportune time to bring up the fact that casting announcements have begun for a series of unfortunate events, which is going to be a series on Netflix. And I'm gonna be honest, since this was announced, I have just had this anxiety building in my stomach. After the disappointment of the movie version, I just have so much fear going into this series version. I love this series so much and I really don't want them to mess it up. But in regards to the new casting announcements that have begun, I'm a little bit concerned. I don't want to deny the fact that Neil Patrick Harris is a great actor, but I really am not sure about him being Count Olaf. I just don't know how I feel about that. And also the two younger actors that they have cast for Violet and Klaus so far, I'm very concerned about them as well because they are very, very young, and I worry about what that means for the show. I'm just concerned because if they cast way too young, then I'm worried that they're gonna make the show aimed at like children and they're gonna take away some of the creepier elements. I know it's a children's book, but it has a very specific feel and I don't want them to turn it into funny, kooky Olaf like they did in the movie. So those are my concerns. If you have comments about this development, let me know what they are down below. I will also link the article about the new casting down below so you can go and look at the actors that they have picked for Violet and Klaus so far. So yeah, with that concern off my chest, I am now going to talk about my favorite book-to-movie adaptations. I was thinking that this list would be part of a series of videos. I think I'm going to do two others, a least favorites video and a video about movies that I think are actually better than the books, which I know is not something we talk about as often, but I think I want to do that video as well. But for now, let's just start with my favorite adaptations. So the first one that I want to mention is Pride and Prejudice. So for all of these, I'm going to throw the book up here and I'm going to throw the movie version that I love over here. So Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen is my favorite Jane Austen book, and one of my favorite adaptations ever is the Pride and Prejudice BBC miniseries. I think that this is one of the most faithful adaptations I've ever seen. It gets every detail of Pride and Prejudice in there, not to mention the fact that it has excellent casting. I really prefer this version to the movie version with Keira Knightley. I just think that they get a lot more of the detail of the book in there in a way that I prefer. Not to mention the fact that I'm always going to be a sucker for Colin Firth. Let's be honest. So I definitely have to give it up to this BBC series. It was made in 1995, so this series is as old as me, but I think that it remains my favorite adaptation of it. Although Pride and Prejudice and Zombies is coming out this year, and I love that book too, so we'll see what happens when that movie comes out. The next one that I want to talk about is The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The book is obviously by C.S. Lewis, and the movie came out in 2005. I love the Chronicles of Narnia series. It is one of those series that I read when I was very young, so I have a lot of emotional connection to it. So when these movies started to come out, I was just thrilled, and unfortunately none of them has lived up to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I think Prince Caspian wasn't amazing, and I think that Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which is my favorite of all of the Narnia books, definitely did not get the heart of that book, and I was really disappointed by it. But let's talk about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. The casting of this movie was insanely perfect. I still haven't gotten over Tilda Swinton as the White Witch. I feel like I'll never recover from how genius that casting was. Not to mention the fact that the four Pevensey siblings were just beautifully cast, especially the little girl who played Lucy. They captured the character so well, they captured the feeling and just mood of this book so fantastically. James McAvoy as Mr. Tumnus was just a genius decision, and he plays that character and all of its different layers so fantastically well. I've been listening to some of the music from this movie recently to, read and do homework, and it's just brought me back to the really wonderful feeling of that movie all over again, and it's made me really want to rewatch it, as well as rereading the series, honestly. Next up, I want to talk about The Green Mile by Stephen King. This movie came out in 1999 and stars Tom Hanks and is just fantastic. A lot of the time I list this as probably the most faithful adaptation I have seen. I just think that they get so much of the detail of The Green Mile in there. The Green Mile was a serial novel, so it is 6 really short books were all released, and then all of those combined into this one movie. This movie is incredibly long, but I feel like we all agree with the fact that we would rather have a super long movie than a movie that ignores the details of the book it is based on. Casting of this movie is of course brilliant, and it makes me so emotional. It's just such a fantastic, fantastic movie. And even though it is long and I need to put some time between watches, I always enjoy watching it, and I always enjoy the emotion of it, so definitely one of my favorites. Next, I want to talk about The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. This movie came out in 2012, and actually I saw the movie before I read the book. It's just kind of how it happened. I don't know how I did that because I don't normally, but there you go. However, I do think that both the movie and the book are just fantastically well done. And definitely, while I loved the movie, I did appreciate the book a lot more when I did read it about a year later. While there are some differences between the movie and the book, Stephen Chbosky had a ton of creative control over the movie, and I think that that is really, really obvious when you're watching it. It just gets the emotions and the really intense journey of Charlie so well on film, and I cry so hard every time I watch this movie. I watched it so many times when it came out that I like almost overexposed myself to the storyline, but it's just such an emotional one, and it's so well acted and so well done, and I absolutely love both. Next up, I want to talk about The Martian by Andy Weir. The movie came out last year, and I think we can all agree it was an absolutely incredible adaptation. While of course the movie cannot get every detail of the book, and in fact there was a lot more that went wrong in the book than went wrong in the movie, this movie captured the humor of the book in such a wonderful way. That was really what concerned me most going into the movie, was that they would kind of take away that humor that Mark Watney has, or that they would alter it in some way, and that was my favorite part of the book, obviously, the narrator. And I love that they maintained Mark Watney's humor so fantastically in The Martian. I love that they still allowed, how profane Mark Watney is, even though it was a PG-13 movie. I'm glad that they allowed as many people as possible to be able to go see the movie while also not getting rid of such an important characteristic of Mark. And I really, really appreciated that. I think Matt Damon did an amazing job. I love the way that they integrated some parts of the storyline that aren't as visible in the book until later throughout the movie. I just thought it did a fantastic job, and it's just a wonderful movie as well as a fantastic book. And the final one that I want to talk about is Gone Girl, of course, by Gillian Flynn. The movie, of course, came out in 2014, and I read the book about 2 weeks before I went to see the movie. So it was very fresh in my mind when I finally got to go see the movie, and wow, did it capture the feeling of this book. I remember when the lights came up in the theater, they didn't, like, turn on all the lights. They weren't working in the theater that I was in, and they just turned on the light at the back so it cast this really ominous glow over the audience while there was like no music as the credits were rolling, and it was the creepiest feeling I've ever experienced. It like messed me up for a week. It was just, it scared me. And I know this book isn't necessarily scary, but it just disturbed me, the way that it ended and the way that I left the theater feeling, so that probably also influences how I feel. But while I was very concerned going into it about the casting, I didn't know about Ben Affleck. I'll admit, I didn't think Neil Patrick Harris was the right choice, and he did do a good job, so maybe I'm prejudging him too hard for Count Olaf, but I don't know. We'll see. But each of the characters did such a great job, and they really maintained Amy as a character, and I think Ben Affleck did an incredible job as Nick, and they all worked together to create just a suspenseful movie, which was exactly what the book made me feel. It was smart, and it was just fascinating, and it definitely created a very, very good representation of what the book is. Now I want to reread Gone Girl and rewatch the movie. Alright, Alright guys, those are my favorite book to movie, or in the case of Pride and Prejudice, book to show adaptations. I hope that you have enjoyed. Please let me know in comments what some of your favorite book to movie, to show, to stage adaptations are. Oh, to stage! I forgot about Fun Home. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what those are in comments, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!